Jack Ham.
I just love hearing your introduction, Steve. It makes my day.
Oh, yeah. Why is it in the end I'm actually the butt of the joke? Maybe that's the enjoyable part.
Well, I think throughout the course of our career, I think it's probably evened out of who's been the butt of the joke. But it's been a fun run. It has been.
Yeah, it certainly has been, and we've enjoyed doing it. Carl Nassib, we've seen a lot of great stories. Have you seen a better story than what we've covered the last decade and a half plus?
No, I've got to admit, Steve, and boy, I tell you what, I never saw this coming, and not that he hasn't gotten better and better each year, but this quantum leap he took from last year to this year, and the way he has played, and the knack of coming off that edge, and getting real shallow after you get to the outside shoulder that tackle and just squeezing it down. And his effort to get off blocks, and make tackles for losses along with the sacks. And, it is truly a great story, and I got to know him pretty well. Like I said, I spent a lot of time with him on a trip back last year from Dublin, and he's just a classy young man. And you know what? You can't wish enough good things for a guy like this. And he has taken his senior year and been taking it to a whole new level.
In reality, Jack, the final series against Northwestern and then Michigan and Michigan State, how much was he missed?
Oh, without a doubt. I think a player like Carl Nassib, again, you really don't realize how much you miss him until he's out of the lineup. It's fine to get that push up front here with Zettel and AJ for the most part. But when you had Carl on the outside as well, the quarterback couldn't step up in the pocket and avoid Nassib, because the push was there as well. But when we lost him on the outside, they had to. You had an offensive line had to pay attention where Carl Nassib was. One-on-one blocking could never handle him. You had to chip with him sometimes with a back as well, or put the tight end over there as well. It kind of dictated and changes what offenses would end up doing, especially in passing situations. So, at the end of that Northwestern game where we gave up that drive for the winning field goal for Northwestern in the last two games, that was a huge loss. Any injuries for a starter, I think you're going to miss that starter. But Carl Nassib was having such a fabulous year that without him, that last drive in the last two games was a huge factor in why probably our defense was not up to par as it had been most of the year.
Now, when we talked about the move of Jason Cabinda this year from outside to middle, but I'm not so sure everyone realizes how difficult that transition is. You had to do it your senior year in college. Now, it's a little bit different scheme now than when you played. But how difficult is that to change up the traffic pattern and make that transition?
It is difficult. And to be very candid with you, Steve, my senior year was my worst year at Penn State because of what you just mentioned. You can only get that in full scrimmages and in practice or game situations where people are coming from you, whether the guard's going to come off, when they double team the nose and come off and try to get you, and you're making different angles, and it's a split second thing. When you're an outside linebacker, you know where everything is coming from the inside out towards you, and it's a little bit different. So. It is a very difficult situation, and plus now with all the spread formations, all the different things, Cabinda had to make all the different checks and all the different calls out there, both to your linemen and also to your secondary as well. Much more complicated for a middle linebacker to do that today, but it is a difficult transition. I think it was a learning experience for him this year, and by playing almost the entire season after the Temple game when Wortman gets hurt. So he's got a load of experience here right now, and you could see him getting better and better, and also in the passing game, coming up with an interception and knocked one down as well. That I thought he could have had an interception early in the year, but he understands the man coverage and getting underneath receivers. So all that experience will make him even that much better next year at 240. He should be a real force in that defense.
Also, in the safety spot, when you look at the safety spot, Lucas got hurt. Allen played hurt. In fact, Lucas played hurt most of the year, too. How tough is that for a player, Jack, when you are playing hurt, especially when you're talking about shoulders and the like?
Well, it's difficult in the safety position because, number one, you're normally making tackles from 10, 15 yards away on either angles on receivers sometimes or on a sweep on a running play. You're coming from that safety position and trying to make a play. And a lot of times, your collisions are with your shoulder pads or after you run 15 or 20 yards. So, yeah, to get guys banged up in that safety position was very, very difficult. Again, I thought injuries is one thing, but the safety play throughout the course of the year was really not up to par. Tackling was really suspect, especially down the stretch when you're playing against quality teams in the Big Ten. We've got to tackle better next year, but that's another position where you learn, while you're playing. That's where you gain the experience on the angles and reading, wide receivers and the formations and what they're trying to do in their patterns and so forth, and anticipating. I don't think we did enough of that where you saw a safety driving on the ball against a wide out, anticipating it and trying to get the football on an interception. We didn't have enough of those kind of plays. I think that's where we're going to have a lot of improvement next year as well.
There was a lot of obvious. They used 8 different combinations on the offensive line this year. Is cohesion as important there, if not more important than any other part of the football team?
Without question. I think if you look at pro teams and who go all the way to the Super Bowl, a lot of times their offensive line stays intact. It's the same guys there for each game and the entire season. And you're right. You can get away with it on the defensive line. You can get away with this at linebacker. Obviously, at running back, you're a gifted athlete. You can insert somebody else in there. But when your 5 offensive linemen are not together all the time, that really causes a problem because all 5 got to come off together, make their reads together. A lot of times you're reading on the run, you're bouncing and going to the second level. All those little things that makes an offensive line very good. We had to interchange so many different people. And again, next year, Steve, the quality of play of our offensive line obviously is going to have to be a whole lot better.
Now, when you look at the quarterback spot, Joe Moorhead is now going to be the offensive coordinator, and he'll take over that after the bowl game is over with. He's the OC now, but Ricky Ronnie's going to call the plays down in Jacksonville. He did a lot of spread offense at Fordham. When you and I have done games, Jack, where Penn State's had a spread attack, what has that meant to an offense if it's run right, and what's it meant in the red zone?
Well, I think number one, in the spread, a lot of times you're making that defense. If you're successful with your plays, you're making that defense, defend the width of the entire football field. That's when we have Polk coming in motion out of that shotgun and either faking it to him, giving him the football, and in fact we threw to him on a wheel route for a touchdown as well. That makes the defense really have to play honest across the board against all of those guys. And then you combine the fact of getting Barkley in the mix as well off of that. There's so many different fakes and reads you can have, or you can just line up if you're good enough and go through all of that and just pound the football right up the middle with Barkley, inside the tackle box area. So if you run that spread offense correctly, and I'll tell you, our new offensive coordinator, he's an up-tempo. I mean, he's not just to throw it all over the lot. He's balanced in his offenses that he has run, but it's also up-tempo, and I think you'll see you won't see our offense at the line of scrimmage as long as they have been this year at the line, and you may see a lot of quick counts and on the first snap and getting this high-tempo, up-tempo kind of offense. So it puts a lot of pressure on the defense if again, you've got the skilled people to do it, and Penn State will have the skilled people to make this thing work.
What did you see in Godwin as the season went along that makes you think he can be a big league wide receiver in this grouping?
Steve, you talk about 40-yard dash times and your hands or whatever, but I tell you what, when you start to gain confidence when you make big catch after big catch in jump balls, you go up and you bring it down. You get really hit by a safety on an in route, and you hang on to the football. Well, Chris Godwin started to do all of those things. Here's a guy, these are back to Joe Paterno-isms about you get better or you get worse. Well, he's gotten better and better each year here at Penn State. And last year, all of a sudden, he gained the confidence and Hackenberg felt that he could go to him at any time, even when he was covered sometimes downfield for the jump ball. Very athletic. But I think the biggest thing, he has a skill set, but the confidence now after making a lot of these big catches and being the guy out there in the passing game, it's going to do a world for him again going into next year.
Obviously, Nassib received first-team All-America honors across the board. Austin Johnson has received some honors. Juan Barkley is now a first-team freshman All-American. When you watch his style of running, Jack, how tough is a guy like that to defend?
Well, I mean, he's a complete package. I mean, some people have, I forget the running back from San Diego State. He is a real quick kid.
Yeah, Donnell Pumphrey.
And he gave us problems, and he gave a lot of other teams problems throughout and they had an outstanding year. Well, he's not really, he'll run inside, but he's not that physical type running back. And then you have a guy who's physical, but he won't be able to bounce it and get it to the outside and turn the corner and make a big play. This is, Barkley is a combination of all of that. And at 220 pounds, I mean, he can run away from people. He'll break every arm tackle because he's so strong from the waist down. You can't arm tackle this kid. We saw so many times him break tackles, and I can remember the one run for the touchdown. I think he's out of the Wildcat, and he ended up breaking a bunch of tackles and got into the end zone. He's got the complete package. He can catch the football out of the backfield, although we didn't use him as much as maybe I think we should have. He can do it. It's the entire combination. Plus, he started to pick up the blitz, do the right things in protection as well. But at 220 pounds, he can, and he's had big runs against good defenses like Ohio State throughout the course of the year, like Michigan State and Michigan. So he's they're deserving to be freshman All-American, and I'm sure his career is. You talk about an arrow pointing up. Yeah. I mean, everybody is, I'm sure, anticipating staying away from injury for this kid to be just outstanding running back and a balance with the running game in our offense next year.
Jack, finally, a lot of people talk about the practices leading up to a bowl game. I think Penn State will end up with like a dozen before this is all said and done. But what about the game itself? I mean, they're going to play Georgia. What does it mean to a program to win that game moving forward?
Well, I think right now for Penn State, I think this is huge. It's just not a reward, and it is a reward for having a solid season. But playing a tough SEC physical team like Georgia in the bowl game, I mean, after the Pinstripe Bowl last year, I mean, that was so much of a jump start into the winter workouts and into spring practice. Playing a quality team like Georgia in this bowl game right now, but it is very important for Penn State to end this season on a high note, beating a team like Georgia. This is as important a football game as any they've had this year, and I'm sure they're going in there with that kind of attitude.
Jack, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, Steve. Take care.
You too. I'm sure between now and then we'll be talking a lot.
I'll bet. All right, Steve. Take care, man.
Thanks, Jack.